Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the author series on the Success Insight podcast. Our guest today is Michael Kutza, founder of the Chicago International Film Festival and author of the autobiographical tell-all book, Starstruck, How I Magically Transformed Chicago into Hollywood for more than 50 years. Published in 2022, last year, Michael pulls back the curtain about his career and dreams of putting Chicago on the map when it comes to international cinema. Michael shares how he and his team magically transformed Chicago into Hollywood for over 50 years. Michael is a rock star in the movie world, having contributed an amazing amount of culture to the world and entertaining hundreds of thousands of filmgoers over the years. Michael, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the author series on the Success Insight podcast.
That is a great intro. I would like to meet that guy.
He's a fascinating guy, and we're going to have a great episode here. And I have to say, I read Starstruck pretty darn quickly to get ready for this episode. I don't often read books, and I remember somebody had shared about Larry King and his interviews, and Larry King, I can't imitate Larry King, so I'm not going to try. He said, I never read the book because that will somehow influence where this conversation goes. And I know, through our mutual friend, Linda O'Connor, of the famous PR maven in Chicago, and she goes, Howard, you can't interview Michael without reading this book. So I want to tell you, that was my commitment to myself this past weekend. It was a wonderful book. You did a great job.
Well, thank you. It's as Michael Douglas says, it's a good read.
I love that. And first of all, and by the way, I want to, for our listeners, we are having the video going on as we record this session, and Michael has the most wonderful outfit on it. Right blazoned over his chest is the word Starstruck. And you're like a walking billboard for this wonderful piece of work.
I believe in it, and I'm a designer as well, so I might as well design the logo of my shirt.
There you go. Now, did you put a lot of attention into the actual font that you use and the size? And
absolutely.
The color?
Well, sure. Throughout the 55 years, by the way, of Chicago International Film Festival, I did all the graphics also for a specific look, and it was always a medium Helvetica.
Okay.
And the colors of the film festival have always been black and white. Red is the accent, and it's a very special red.
Love that. I love that.
It's a vermilion, which is actually a good luck kind of red in the Chinese.
Okay.
Don't ask me where that came from, but it's true.
Well, I have a friend back in Chicago who is in the design world, and all I remember is he was working on my logo, or I had given him my business card. He goes to me, Howard, I love your logo, but it's driving me crazy. And it's like, why is that? And because I had my logo, and you kind of see it up in my banner behind me. It's actually a guy raising his hand with a head. Some people think it's a martini glass with an olive, but who am I? It is what it is. So before we kind of dive into Starstruck, and I don't know, by the way, I hope you're good with time because we're going to go as long as we need to today. If you could share a little bit about your background. I mean, we don't need to go into underneath the rug and see all the cool stuff that's there, but share a little bit with our listeners about your background and what led you into this wonderful world of cinema for over 55 years.
Well, first of all, I'm from Chicago. I'm a Chicagoan from the West Side, and I come from a family of doctors: mother, father, aunt, uncles, cousins. Everyone is a doctor. I think my dog was actually studying to be a doctor in a strange way. So needless to say, it's expected for me to become a doctor. So the irony of that is I studied to be a doctor, went to Loyola, pre-med and all, but on the side, I was making movies. Now, how did you suddenly get to making movies as a kid? My mother, a doctor, these are older, I had old parents, and having a female doctor she was OB-GYN. My dad was a surgeon.
Sure.
She would travel a lot with her lady doctor friends to conventions and things around the world. And she always carried a movie camera with her. Don't ask me why. 16 millimeter movie camera.
Those were big
And
cameras, by the way. Those were not insignificant.
and she's a big woman, so she was able to carry it. She carried it with her, and then she'd come back and she'd throw it on the table. And I was probably about 7 or 8 years old, and she said, "Make this into a movie. The ladies are coming over, the other doctors. They're coming on Sunday." So here I have access to movie film, and I'm making and adding music and putting on a show for the lady doctors. I got hooked really early in the game making movies. It's really funny. Have you seen the new Spielberg film, The Fableman? Because it's very similar to my early life.
Okay. No,
So
I haven't seen it yet, but I am definitely
I
going to go out.
highly recommend it, because we go through a lot of the very same things together and indirectly. To get off another tangent, I was making the movies, and I was also trying to keep their marriage together.
Uh,
You have two strong doctors, one in one hospital, one in another, and they're professional, and that's a whole other book now that I think of it.
well, you got plenty of time for that. So
So
another bestseller.
I was making movies at a young age, and I continued making movies. And high school, they wanted a promotional film to promote the school, so I said, okay, I'll make that, and I started doing all of that. While this wasn't amusing my father, a severe Polish surgeon at St. Mary's Hospital. And by the way, St. Mary's Hospital is where Robin Williams was born.
Okay.
And there's some trivia for you. It's in
Where
the book.
Where was St. Mary's?
St. Mary's still is. It's a hospital on the west side.
Okay.
It's actually it's in the Ukrainian Village, which is
okay, I know
appropriate
that.
today.
Yeah.
Which is about division and Western.
Okay.
It still exists. It's a bigger, more modern place.
Mhm.
And throughout all of this, playing around with movies and all, my dad would help me give me the money to help start this film festival idea. And he said, but remember, this is just a passing fancy, right? Because you're going to become a doctor. That's always in their head. And I said, absolutely, Dad.
Uh-oh.
I know, I lied. I killed my parents. I got away with murder.
Oh my God.
I broke their hearts.
I'm curious now, when did it finally occur to mom and dad, the family, that Michael was not going into the family business of
First, we're still making movies. We're still in school, and then college at Loyola with pre-med. But I also was still making real movies now, shorter films that I try to get them shown in theaters and things like that. So I started entering. I was about 19 or 20. I started entering my movies into foreign film festivals because short subjects, experimental, in Poland and in France and in Ireland, you name it. And then I get an award for a short film in France at a Cannes Film Festival for students. And that is what triggered things. There's a lot of stuff going out there in the world film-wise, and there's nothing in my city. There's nothing going on in Chicago. And I got some friends together. We started talking about the idea, maybe we should start a big film event or film festival and show other people's work from around the world, or our own world, and my movies, of course, too.
Of course.
And that's how that all began. And I said, Dad, would you help me make this happen? As long as you're going to become a doctor. I said, of course. Well,
what a guy.
Yeah, I know. So you asked, when did they realize I wasn't going to? Well, first, then we put on the first film festival. And if you read in the book, it explains all the people that helped me put the first thing together. It introduced me to the celebrity that make the book possible, Starstruck. When did they realize? The first festival took place, they came to it, they saw, okay. Then the second festival happened, and they started realizing this thing was getting big. And they didn't discuss the doctor thing again, because suddenly the festival took off, maybe the third, fourth year. And I guess they were indirectly proud of it, but we never discussed it because they were workaholics. In fact, we never really discussed anything. We saw each other once a week, my folks.
Really. And
I know
if
that sounds strange, but it was the way it was.
and I can imagine being in the professions they were in. I suspect it's not no different today. It's a full-on commitment to be a medical professional, surgeon,
Absolutely.
obstetrics,
There's no
gynecology.
question. I learned total dedication
Mhm.
through them. They their dedication to their patients. And remember, this is a long time ago. We're talking about the 60s.
Right.
They even made house calls in those days
Oh, yeah.
without the fear of being murdered.
Right,
My mother would go deliver babies, OB-GYN, and Dad would do surgery every morning and at the hospital. They're really,
But even after the second or third festival, there was no wink or nod, and this is, "Look at what our son is doing."
no.
Nothing, no.
I'll tell you something funny. One day, maybe into 5 or 6 festivals, I had to go to my dad's office, and I had really never been to his office.
Mm.
And you'd have to find out why I went to. It's in the book. I don't want to discuss it on here.
We're not gonna give away the secrets.
Exactly. So I go into his office, and all over the walls, this is really true, are all these film clippings, newspaper clippings, and magazine pictures, everything, all about the success of the festival and me. And I didn't say a word. I was blown away. I was really touched that even though he never said a word, here's this whole wall of him being proud of the festival.
Wow.
That was really special.